Hello, it's your boy Abdul Basil and welcome back to my channel F1 Racing Central aka FRC. We have a very special guest today, Daud Ahmed Chaudhary. He is since with me since class 3 and he has started watching F1 since I guess 2021 if I'm not wrong.
Yeah, it's been like 2, 3 years since you forced me to watch
Yeah,
F1. It's
exactly.
been an amazing
Yes,
experience.
exactly. I have forced everyone to watch F1 and now the community is grown, my friends community has grown. Those people I know who watch F1, the number has grown since then. So yeah. So coming on to the race weekend, in my opinion, it was really nice to have the cars back on track for race, and the things shaped up really nicely for the Red Bull, Aston Martin, and in my opinion, somewhat Mercedes as well. But talking about FP1, FP2, and FP3, so FP1 was a bit okayish. I mean, the teams were just the day timing was the main thing. It was in daytime, so I think the teams didn't had any qualifying program during that session. So, but yeah, Red Bull in FP1 there was Red Bull 1 and 2 and Alonso wrapping up the top 3. So it was really nice. In FP2 there was a lot of things as well. Alonso topping that session and with Red Bull 2 and 3. Coming on to FP3 now, so again Alonso topped that session and it was again Red Bull 2 and 3. Coming on to qualifying, what a qualifying session we had. I mean, the top 20 cars in Q1 was just separated by 1.1 seconds. That was obviously a big thing that we got to know that the midfield is really close in terms of the battle wise. We don't know who will be coming out on fifth place. Obviously, we have the top four guys right now. Speaking, we have those top four guys: Mercedes, Ferrari, Red Bull, and Aston Martin. We, we know that they are going to be in the championship mix for the top four. They are obviously Aston Martin has taken top three or top four place, but what I think is like the rest of the six teams will be competing for the fifth place in the midfield, and that fifth place field looks really close. I mean, these midfield guys are just separated by milliseconds. Obviously, Logan Sargent and Lando Norris are doing the exactly the same time in Q1 to get out of Q2, get out of Q1, and Lando Norris eventually getting out of Q1 just due to that the fact that in the regulation it says that uh, the person who has set the lap early will will be the one who will get out or who will be getting that place. So it was just down to the regulations. Logan Sargent was really unlucky for that reason, but it was a really good qualifying session. In Q2, Nando also expected to be knocked out. Valtteri Bottas, so I expected these guys to be knocked out in Q2. Obviously, for the reason that they don't have the machinery. What was a surprise for me is that uh, Nicole Hulkenberg and Esteban Ocon getting into Q3. That was a real surprise for me because I didn't think that Alpine had a car to make it into Q3. And obviously, Nicole Hulkenberg also saying that they have a one lap pace, but they don't have the race pace. Obviously, we saw today that Haas don't have a race pace, but on one lap they are good. They are really decent given on a one lap quali pace, but again they don't have the race pace, so the position doesn't matter in terms of qualifying. The position doesn't matter in this track. At Bahrain, the position doesn't matter where you qualify. If you have a car that has a race pace, you can eventually get a you can eventually get good result on the race day. But yeah, coming on to Q3, it was really close battle between the Red Bulls. Ferrari was there and thereabout with the Red Bulls, and we saw that we saw that Ferrari making that strategic choice of saving a new set of soft tires by not sending Leclerc out on the last Q3 run, and Mercedes did the same. Red Bull obviously going out to secure that 1-2 position for them. Front row lockout. Eventually, it was a front row lockout for Red Bull, and Aston Martin coming in fifth with Alonso, and sixth with sixth or seventh with Stroll, which was really good for Aston Martin, given that Lance Stroll had an injury on his hand. Coming on to race now, what a race we had. Red Bull dominated that race. Verstappen dominated that race from the start till the end. There was just a point that I thought that Ferrari just had second place in the hands until that pit stop by Red Bull and pitting Paris for soft tires rather than going on the harsh directly, which was again a really good choice from Red Bull strategic wise. What do you have to say on this, Daud?
Like starting from the start of the race, it was really unfortunate for Ocon, like how he started. He got a penalty like multiple times. It was a 10-second penalty, it was a 15-second penalty, and he did like ineffectively used a penalty. And then when we talk about the start of the race, at the starting of the Grand Prix, if we look at the starts, Leclerc was the best. His reaction time was much faster than Max. But Perez had an extremely bad start. Because of the start, he wasn't able to fight for the first position. He knew he was gonna go for second or third. Now we talk about the race at turn 4, I guess. Lance Stroll launched into. He touched his partner, Alonso.
That
It was a really.
that was a bit like it. It was a bit like too aggressive going into the turn 4 on the first lap. Like you were just dive bombing into Russell, and which didn't paid off eventually. Alonso losing positions due to that, but damn, that Aston Martin looks really solid in terms. Aston Martin had hits 2 times and it didn't fall apart. That Aston Martin looks damn solid.
But hats off to Lance Stroll coming back from his surgery, and he was really injured. His wrists, his toes, and so much was going on, and he got a P7, I guess. Like amazing.
Yes, amazing drive by Lance Stroll and amazing drive by Fernando Alonso. What a drive he had, what a battle he had with Lewis Hamilton and Carlos Sainz. He was absolutely on fire today. There was no begging out that Alonso couldn't get that podium. I mean, after that Leclerc engine failure, Alonso was right up there for that podium, and it was his podium for taking. Sainz was nowhere with that Ferrari. He was nowhere, and mid race we knew that it was going to be a Red Bull 1-2, and so it was just about who will be getting that third place for third place, and eventually it was Alonso who got that third place. So uh, it was really good race, and
What an amazing battle between Alonso and Hamilton. Like they're sharing 9 times world championships, and like it was an amazing race. Alonso was going all out. He was telling the crowd. He was giving statements through his audio. Like what a great race he had. What a
Alonso
great
was
race. Man.
there's some Alonso says as this that Alonso was on fire today. He knew he had a car underneath him, and he just delivered that result with that car. He was on fire. Talking about Max Verstappen, he dominated that freaking race. Like from lap 1 to lap 58, he dominated that race, and he was like what 10 to 12 seconds ahead of everyone, ahead of his teammate Perez,
Yeah, he had a 10 seconds lead in the first 10
which
laps.
uh, uh, which is a really big thing in Formula One, having a 10-second lead in first 10 laps. That was freaking awesome drive by Verstappen. Obviously, Verstappen being a top class driver, and right now, what I think that having no competition with the field, he will be getting that third championship. What I feel like.
Yeah, and looking forward to the season, Max winning his first race at Bahrain, and for the first time, Max winning the first opening race of a season. It's a really good sign for Red Bull, having P1, P2, and Max breaking his own record on Bahrain GP. What a great day for Red Bull.
Coming on to Ferrari, I mean, what can we say about Ferrari? Ferrari being Ferrari, that the Leclerc engine blew up. Their strategy was really good today. They were trying undercuts, avoiding those undercuts from Red Bull, from Perez, and they did everything which was in their hand. But eventually, Leclerc engine blew up, and he was out of the race. And with Sainz, he was nowhere in terms of drive, in terms of car. He was nowhere. Like Leclerc was third and like Sainz was in fourth, and he was like what 14 seconds behind Leclerc, which was really I really doubted Sainz at that point. That is Sainz a good driver for Ferrari? He has dropping back since the season started, and preseason shows that, testing shows, practice session shows that Sainz has taken a step back, after last year. So it will be just on time that how science will adapt to this car. But I think science has really taken a step back. And Leclerc, we all know that Leclerc is a good driver. He's a great driver, but his luck is really shit.
And talking about Pierre Gasly, like, what a comeback that dude made. He was at P20, I guess, and he finished around
Yeah,
P9.
Pierre Gasly drive was exceptionally really well. I mean, if we look at Fernando Alonso drive, I mean, he had a really good drive, Fernando Alonso, but in my opinion, Pierre Gasly should have been given the driver of the day, in my opinion, because he was obviously, he didn't have the car. Starting P20th, coming into onto P9, that was a really good drive from Pierre Gasly. And talking about Esteban Ocon, what can we say about Esteban Ocon?
A bad day, a really bad day, a really bad day for
It was just like
Ocon.
that luck was not on his side.
Yeah, definitely. And talking about Hulkenberg, like during the qualifiers, he was like really good, better than expected. But during the race, we saw him going off limits, going off tracks, getting 5 second penalties for that. Like it was really weird to look Hulkenberg. UK, he was in a good position. We thought he was gonna do good in this race.
Yes, obviously, I thought he will be doing good in this race, and eventually he fell apart with that car. Eventually, even though he said that they don't have that race pace, but I wasn't taking
Yeah.
I wasn't taking that shit that they don't have the race pace. I thought that Haas, given that Nicole Kemba has qualified so high up the grid, I thought that Haas can take something out of this, but for Haas it just fell apart. And talk,
And a really bad day for McLaren as well.
yeah,
Like pastry on his debut, I guess, going out. And we talk about Lando Norris. He's an extremely talented driver, and he was at the last position. But while being a lap behind Hamilton, Sainz, and Alonso, he was actually battling them like just for the fun of it. And McLaren were technically doing it as an experience and testing out what to do and what not to do and what strategy to make up. They weren't actually racing in this race.
yeah, that's the point. They weren't actually racing in this race. Piastri was out, and Lando Norris was nowhere in terms of race pace. So it was just like Williams back in the days, to be very honest. With these names, Williams,
True,
with
true,
these
true.
names, Williams, McLaren, I don't think they should be back of the grid. I think they should be competing with the top. But
But one point to like talk about like often and
yeah,
over again. We were actually kind of missing Daniel Ricciardo
yeah,
today. We were missing
yeah,
Daniel
it was
Ricciardo.
really the grid was really looking off today. I mean, the post race pictures that did really looked off without Daniel Ricciardo or even Sebastian Vettel today. I mean, we already,
Yeah, Vettel. It's been like more than 20 years that there's no race that Vettel hasn't been a part of. He's in the grid always. Like he's a legend. He's a goat. And even Daniel Ricciardo, he's the top of the line players. He's the top of the
he was the
top.
best driver.
There's no debate
He was the
about
best
it.
driver during that Red Bull tenure. He was the best driver. Everyone was thinking that if Red Bull makes a good car, he can be the world champion. But obviously, with his career decisions, who can point out his career decisions? But his career really fell apart from him, even though he was a really great driver. We,
But talking about Alonso, he capitalized on his movements and his speed and his cutting, like really good. He was
he was
brave.
really brave.
He was going in, he was turning in, turning out. He was
He,
outstanding.
he was literally outstanding, and we all know how talented Alonso is. Even though he's 41 years, he had that speed, he has that fire inside him that he can deliver. He knows he can deliver week in week out, and he is a championship material. He wants to win that third championship with Aston Martin, and he knows he has a great package underneath him. So time will tell who will be winning that championship. But right now, speaking, Verstappen is on in his own class. Red Bull obviously winning these races. There is no stopping Red Bull from going for this season. There will be no one to stop Red Bull.
Yeah, there's actually no competition to Red Bull right now. Red Bull's like above everyone's league right now. Talking about Carlos Sainz, what happened with Carlos Sainz and Hamilton? Carlos Sainz was keeping on, reportedly saying he cannot push when Hamilton was right behind him because his tires were degrading. And talking about that, during the time he was complaining, his tires were 16 laps old. And Hamilton was on 15 laps old tires. They were technically at the same life age of tires. But Hamilton saving his tires was extremely valuable, and like he has all the experience he
Yes,
need to.
obviously that what I think is that the Ferrari car SF23 is a tire eater. Last year also we saw that F174 was a tire eater. This year again the SF23 is a tire eater. What I think that Ferrari should regroup and think about what they can do about the car. Really, if they need to win a championship in future, I don't think the Ferrari team is regrouped properly. With Fred Vasseur coming in, I think he can. Let's hope he can take that team to Australia players winning their championships. But strategy-wise, Ferrari was top class. Talking about Mercedes, I think it was a step forward for them from last year, but I think they are really struggling again this year. We could see that Russell was close behind Stroll, but he wasn't able to pass Stroll, and with again that was the case with Hamilton as well. He had a fresher tires from Sainz, but he couldn't pass Sainz as well, and eventually that kept going down to 3 seconds or 4 seconds at the end. Mercedes really needs to think about that concept. What do you think about it?
Yeah, and talking about Hamilton and Carlos Sainz both were facing bouncing issues. Their car were actually oscillating between the straights. Carlos Sainz actually like complained a couple of times to his team principal and all that his cars was actually oscillating, and it was actually a bit of concern from both Carlos Sainz and Hamilton.
Yeah, the proposing issue is a bit of concern for every team. I think Red Bull has completely eliminated that. Aston Martin, there wasn't any bouncing with Aston Martin as well, but for Mercedes and Ferrari, it's really big concern. That bouncing issue, proposing issue is really big concern for them.
Yeah, but during this race, every team had his fair shares of difficulty and problems. Like,
Yeah.
even if we talk about the race winner, Max Verstappen, he had downshift problems and
Yeah.
his balancing problems, and his rear tires actually degrading quite early, and the right tire, at the forward right tire, was actually degrading too. So he also had his problem.
You just talked about Red Bull having those issues. I think that even with those issues, I think Red Bull has that race pace. They are clear ahead of the field. There is no stopping for Red Bull. They can easily dominate this whole season, just like Mercedes did back in 2020, or even Red Bull back in 2013. So it's just like Red Bull are clear up front. Coming on to Williams now, I think they had a really good race today with their car. Given that they had a really good race today. Logan Sargent was up there with Alex Albon, and Alex Albon obviously fighting for those points position initially and in mid race. But I think Williams have still a lot of road ahead to capitalize on and go forward with
And
it.
talking about Williams as a team in particular, this is the first season where Alex Albon is actually the senior player among the two. Alex Albon is the senior player, and I think he did a really good job tonight, showing his team that he is actually capable of being the senior player.
Yeah.
And while Sargent, what a good day! Like, I wouldn't say it was a bad day. He had plenty of challenges, plenty of rivalry between the middle, from like lap from 25 till 35. It was a really good race for Williams. They did really well.
Yeah, given that the car they have, I think it was a really good race. And Local Sergeant being a rookie, we can't complain from a rookie that he should be in points and competing with a teammate, a more experienced teammate. It was just really like he was on par with Alex Albon, and just like you said that it is the first time that Alex Albon has any responsibility on his road and being a team leader. It was really nice to see him being a team leader and not being a second driver to any other driver.
Yeah, and everyone, like, the F1 community around the world actually missed Nicholas Latifi today. Like, what a goat racer he is.
Oh, no crashes, no, not a single crash today, and we miss Latifi. We need for a perfect race, we need a safety car, we need Latifi, and we don't have that guy today with
Yeah,
us.
and like the curse of Latifi actually got to Leclerc today. Like,
Yeah,
I
don't
feel
talk
like,
about it. It's a pain for me. I don't talk about Leclerc. Let's just move on from Leclerc's engine failure. It's pain for
but
me.
Leclerc actually drove really good today. Like, talking about how much he raced till he finished, it was a really good race for Leclerc. He was actually like, not comparison to Max, but he was actually really good today.
Yeah, given that the car Leclerc has, I think he really outperformed that car today. He was right there in between. He was right there with Paris. Obviously, Red Bull choosing different strategy, but yeah, there was a bit. Leclerc was right up there with Checo. I
Yeah, and
know.
talking about Ferrari, what an offensive strategy Ferrari had today, double stacking. Like,
Yeah,
it
like
was a great strategy to go on with.
yeah, Ferrari. I think the new strategist is doing really well. Given that the first race, how they planned out those strategies, he did really good job today. But without that, without the car pace, I don't think that these strategies will work out eventually. If you have that
Yeah,
strategy, but you are
and talking about what went really well for Red Bull today was actually going for the soft tire instead of the hard, which Ferrari took.
yeah, actually, the thing was that Red Bull used those hard tires in FP3, and they didn't have a new set of. They had only one set of hard tires, so that was the decent strategy. They could have gone with the tire deck and race pace. I think it was a better strategy. They obviously have a great tire deck, and they have a really better tire deck compared to Ferrari. And going for the surf, we know how good Sergio Perez is with his tires, obviously. So,
And
Red.
talking about Charles Leclerc, like today he started with क्या कहते हैं क्या कह रहा था मैं अच्छा हाँ रुक जा talking about Charles Leclerc today, he started his race with new freshly soft tires. Like everybody was using warmed up tires, if I remember, but Leclerc he started up with fresh tires. It was like a real brave move.
Yeah, for Ferrari, it was a really brave move. I was legitimate scared that will these tires last long enough for Ferrari, given the tire deck issues. I think it did last long enough from my expectation. It exceeded it, and given that how Leclerc managed those tires as well, it was really good. So, yeah, all in all, this
Yeah,
race was.
and talking about
किसकी बात करनी है अब बस कर दे बस कर दे all in all.
एक से लास्ट बड़ी हरामी बात करने दो. And talking about the standings today, we talk about Aston Martin. They're actually, after today's race, the second team in the constructors ranking. Like
Yeah,
that's an amazing sight to see.
it's a really good sight to see Aston Martin. We could have said that when they launched that car, if we could have said that they will be second in the constructors championship from after first race in Bahrain, I would be laughing at that if anyone said that to me. Legitimate, I will be laughing at that point. And
Yeah, 100%.
the things that McLaren, sorry, not McLaren, Aston Martin changed. It is really great to see that a small team coming up through the ranks and competing with the top guys. Obviously, you have all the money from Lance Stroll's dad, but I don't think Aston Martin could have done it without that money. But it is said that you know Aston Martin has new facilities, and they took some of the Red Bull aerodynamics and engineers from Red Bull. So, given that Aston Martin has really performed really well in today's race, let's talk about your F1 fantasy league. What's your score
Oh
today?
yeah, I almost forget about that. Like, it was a really good day for me as well. Like, as a
Yeah, I know
personal
that.
F1 supporter,
I know that, bro.
my dream fantasy league, F1 fantasy league, I actually got like I cannot believe it. I'm actually at the top 14th of Pakistan's league. I
Oh,
had 102 points, 6,065th position around the globe.
Bro, that talking about myself in F1 Fantasy League, I could just got 73 points. Even the Leclerc DNF'd and Sainz was nowhere. With Alonso, I just got Alonso and constructor points for Aston Martin. Rest I didn't got any points. So
I got double points for Max Verstappen. I got triple points for Checo Perez. I got points for Alonso. I didn't get points for Bottas. I got 1 point for Hulkenberg. I got constructor points for Aston Martin and of course Red Bull.
yeah, I know how big a supporter of Red Bull you are, but I hate that team. No offense to anyone, but I genuinely don't like that team. ये काट देंगे, ये काट
I'm
देंगे.
actually wearing the red this. It's not Ferrari, it's Red Bull.
Yeah, I know that Red Bull has red stripes all over the shirt, inspired by Ferrari. So, all in all, it was a great race. It was a great opening race in Bahrain. And till then, see you guys in my next video, inshallah, with Dawdem. Till then, bye.
See you guys after the Jeddah Grand Prix.